Hello everyone and welcome back to the Firewood Academy series. Today we're going to be going over how to split firewood, hardwood firewood specifically. So, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Most of the time when firewood's cut, it's too large in diameter to season well or fit the firebox or wood stove it's intended for. Splitting the wood can make even very large logs usable, as well as allowing them to season more quickly. Someone with scrawny arms and the right technique can split hardwood more quickly and more efficiently than a linebacker swinging with the wrong technique. You're going to want to use a maul or splitting wedges for splitting hardwood, unless of course you have a log splitter. And a splitting maul is essentially a thicker, more wedge-shaped axe made for splitting hardwood along the grain with a blunt sledgehammer end on the back. And these are usually heavier than axes by several pounds, more like a sledgehammer, and this makes the job much easier. Splitting wedges are basically metal wedges that you drive into the wood with a sledge, and the benefit of the wedge is that you can place it along the grain to split the wood, then drive it into the exact same place until it splits. Axes are usually used to chop wood, not split it, but you can get splitting axes. Felling axes are more slim than, or chopping axes are usually more slim than splitting axes. So this if you use a felling axes or chopping axe, it's really hard to split the wood. Step 1. Cut your wood to length. The average wood stove or the smaller fireplace will usually take a 16 to 20 inch log, and the shorter the log is, the more easily it'll split. You should cut your wood to the most efficient length for your purpose in terms of both handling and storing it, as well as making it a suitable length for your application. Try to cut the ends of each piece of firewood square and flat, as you'll need to stand them on end to split them, and crooked cuts will make this difficult to do. Step 2. Set up a chopping block. This will be the surface you place the individual logs on to split them, which will make it easier to swing the maul or sledge and will also cause less strain on your back. A wood surface about 6 to 12 inches off the ground is appropriate for most splitting jobs, unless you're standing on a step stool for some reason. The block should be neither too high nor too short to avoid dangerous ricochets if you should strike a glancing blow. Always split on some kind of block, never the ground or concrete, because if you hit the ground or concrete, it will dull your axe or maul or wedge. The ground will do in a pinch, but you'll tire more easily if you have to lift the maul or sledge that much higher. You're going to want to set up in a safe location. Allow for good footing and make sure there's no debris or overhanging limbs around where you'll be working. Splitting hardwood is especially efficient on cold days if the wood has been properly aged or seasoned before splitting. Pieces of hardwood will pop right apart with the proper technique during colder weather, and that'll make your job easier. And you need to wear the appropriate PPE or protective gear. For a day of splitting hardwood, outfit yourself properly. You should wear good quality gloves to save your hands from splinters, safety glasses, and a pair of solid work boots, preferably steel toe. Never split wood by hand by yourself or without making sure that someone else is at least around who will be able to aid if you should have an accident. Step 1. Place your first log on the chopping block. Make sure it's stable and near the center of the block if possible. Swinging a heavy maul at an unsteady block is extremely dangerous. A glancing blow could strike your leg or send the wood flying off like a dangerous projectile. Step 2. Examine the wood before splitting it. Look for hairline cracks in the log. You should aim so that the blade of your maul runs in the same direction as the crack. Different woods split in different ways, so plan accordingly. Oak splits somewhat easily through the center, even in large diameter portions. Maple, on the other hand, is split more easily towards the edges of the end grain. Look for large knots or places where a limb was removed when the wood was cut, and avoid them. These places will likely have very crooked, gnarly grain, which should be avoided if at all possible. You could spend all day hacking away at knots and not get anywhere. Step 3. Aim. It may seem simple and overrated, but you need to aim. Choose the location you want to split the log, stand with your maul resting on that location, and set your feet square. You might tap a little indentation into the wood so you'll have a good visual cue at which to guide the maul if the grain isn't obvious from where you're standing. Step 4. Bring the maul up and down. You don't really swing a maul, and you don't need to put the end behind your head at any point to split the wood properly. Hold the maul firmly with your dominant hand at the end of the handle and cradle the maul with your weak hand, just below the head of the maul. Flex your knees slightly, then lift the maul head straight above your head and extend your arms straight. Slide your strong hand down until both of your hands are close, gripping the end of the handle. Then bring your hands down and flick your wrists, letting gravity do much of the work for you. Splitting has much less to do with strength and more to do with using the correct technique. Swinging the maul wildly is both dangerous and exhausting. Step 5. Pull the maul head out of the log if the wood fails to split on the first swing. You may have to pull and twist it hard to remove it. If the head is sunk deeply and stuck in the wood, that's what you'll have to do. Rock the maul head up and down to work it out of the wood. Alternatively, you can treat the planted maul like a splitting wedge and hit the blunt metal end of the maul with a sledge. This is a popular and common technique for splitting logs. If you've placed the maul accurately, or it's quite stuck, use this method so you don't waste time trying to pull it out. Do not do this if you are using an axe, as axes are made out of harder metal and will chip if they are hit by a sledgehammer, as a maul will the edges will kind of mushroom over. Step 6. Repeat your swing into the wood until the wood splits. Try to strike in exactly the same place as the first time, or along the length of any crack which appeared when you hit it. Step 7. Split and stack the rest of your wood. Split each block of wood into progressively smaller pieces until they are the desired size. Normally you'll split the block in half, then each half will be split again until the pieces are about 6 to 8 inches at the largest cross section. Stack split wood so that air can circulate around it to allow it to season thoroughly before the wood is burned in a wood stove or fireplace. Cover it to prevent rain from repeatedly wetting it, which will cause it to rot, but do so in a manner which still allows for good air circulation. Now, I've got 2 whole videos which go into a lot of detail on seasoning and storing firewood, and I'll have the links to those in the description below. Have several wedges on hand. Wedges work best for knotty pieces of wood, or especially hard or large diameter pieces of wood. Because it's possible to drive a wedge deep into a thick log without necessarily splitting it, it's good to have backup wedges available to save your initial wedge and complete the job if it should get in over its head. If you're commonly splitting with wedges, a good combination would be a sharp starter wedge that you can use to really bite into the wood and get it started, and another blunter but wider wedge that you can use to continue splitting once you've gotten it started. Tap the wedge into the grain with the sledge. A short-handled sledge should work just fine for the job, and that's what I usually use if I'm splitting with wedges. But it really depends on the size of the log and what's available. The short-handled sledge will also be easier to aim, and holding the wedge like you would a very large nail, tap it in until it stands on its own. Now it's time to really hammer with the sledge. Using solid, straight blows, hammer the wedge into the log along the grain until it splits. If you hammer it all the way in and the log still hasn't split, start your other wedge along the same crack, but closer to the edge of the wood, so the force will make the split longer, which should free both wedges and split the logs. Be sure to stand clear of the line of cracking so the wedge won't pop out at your feet. As you hammer, stand perpendicular to the splitting of the log and the wedge itself. Now it's time to finish the job. There might be some remaining connected wood fiber that you can finish it with an axe or a maul, and you can likely use a maul or an axe to split the sections you just split in. I hope you guys liked this video and learned something new. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. Check us out on Facebook at Outdoors with A&T. And don't forget to check us out on Patreon. We've got 3 different membership options over there. So, yeah. I'll see you all soon. Until next time, bye for now.